Hi, everyone. Today we're starting with a story about a man who just wanted peace. Nothing flashy, no drama, just a few chickens, some space to breathe, and a stretch of land he could call his own. But the world doesn't always let folks like Raymond Carter go quietly. You see, what happened to him started with a handshake that never came and ended with a toll gate that made an entire neighborhood stop and take a long, hard look in the mirror. This could happen to anyone, even you. So before we dive into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? Raymond Carter had never been a man to stir the pot. At 64, he had the slow, measured walk of someone who'd seen things fall apart and put back together too many times to rush anymore. Born and raised in Bakersfield, California, he'd spent nearly 40 years patching asphalt, directing traffic crews, and dealing with grumbling residents who forgot who filled their potholes every time it rained. When the city finally handed him his retirement plaque, misspelled name and all, he didn't make a fuss. He smiled, shook hands, and walked out into the sunset with a modest pension and a battered Ford truck that still smelled like hot tar in summer. He'd always dreamed of owning land, not for status, not for show, but for space, breathing room, a place where you could walk barefoot in the dirt and not hear engines whining in the background. He found it just outside Redstone Ridge, Texas. 6 acres of rugged promised dry brush, thorny mesquite, a sagging fence that barely stood, and an old pump house with a tin roof that screamed every time the wind picked up. But Raymond saw more than land. He saw a future. Chickens, maybe goats, raised beds for vegetables, and a little teaching space for local kids who'd never touched a shovel in their lives. There was only one paved road leading to the property, a narrow ribbon of old county asphalt that dipped between scrub oaks and mesquite cutting, just alongside the border of a newer subdivision called Pine Hollow Estates. The real estate agent had mentioned something about an HOA, their next door, not over you, and Raymond had nodded. He wasn't concerned. He wasn't building a theme park or a neon pink mansion. He just wanted to build a life. The first few weeks were heaven, early mornings with black coffee evenings, walking the perimeter with his dog Samson, a slow-eyed mutt with a crooked tail, and endless patience. Raymond started clearing the junk pile near the back fence, replaced rusted hinges on the barn door, and planted wildflower seeds near the gravel driveway, just because they reminded him of his mother's garden. Then came the white SUV. It rolled past slowly every morning, same time, same speed, tinted windows. No wave, no nod. Just that unmistakable crawl of curiosity laced with judgment. Raymond ignored it at first, but on the fourth day the car stopped. A woman stepped out. She was dressed like a catalog photo, khakis, pressed sharp white blouse, crisp sunglasses too clean for dust country. "Mr. Carter," she asked, though it sounded more like a formality than a question. "I'm Raymond," he replied, wiping his hands on a shop rag and stepping down from the porch. "I'm Elaine Croft, president of the Pine Hollow Estates HOA." Raymond extended a hand. She didn't take it. She pulled a file from a leather portfolio and opened it with the care of someone unveiling evidence. "You're probably not aware," she began, "but this land used to be part of the Dawson Tract, which was later annexed for visual continuity with the development next door." Raymond blinked. "It's outside your jurisdiction, though. I checked the plat map." "Yes," Elaine said, smiling like a teacher correcting a child. "Technically. But Pine Hollow has a vested interest in maintaining a cohesive look for all properties adjoining the community. We'd appreciate it if you'd consider some adjustments. Paint colors, fencing, landscaping choices." Raymond's voice stayed steady. "I'm not part of your HOA. You're part of the environment." He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply turned and walked back to the shed, Samson trotting at his heels. He knew that tone, knew what it meant to be treated like a stain on someone's polished floor. He figured that would be the end of it. It wasn't. 2 mornings later, Raymond stepped outside with his thermos and froze. A brand new chain-link fence stretched across the only paved road into his land. No sign, no notice. Concrete footings still wet around the base. The fence had been put up overnight, quietly, precisely, and now his gate stood 10 feet behind it, useless. His truck was still inside, but nothing else could get in. No deliveries, no mail, no propane tank refills, nothing. That afternoon, he drove to the Pine Hollow HOA office. It was locked. He left a note. No reply. 3 days later, Danielle missed her dialysis appointment. The transport van called from the fence, confused and stuck. Raymond walked out to meet them, jaw-tight, hands shaking. That night, Danielle lay on the couch, pale as the throw blanket pulled over her legs. "Uncle Ray," she whispered, "are they allowed to do this?" He looked out the window at the new fence, at the insult, at the violation. "No," he said slowly, "but I've got something better than yelling." Raymond wasn't built for shouting. He'd spent his life listening first to machines, then to men, then to silence. And when that silence was disturbed, he didn't swing fists. He flipped the script. Raymond didn't waste time. The next morning, while the dew still clung to the grass and the coffee barely had color, he put on his oldest work boots and drove into town. Redstone Ridge's county clerk office was tucked behind the sheriff's station. Small, quiet, the kind of place where the walls still held the scent of old file cabinets and faded carpet. The woman at the front desk had a soft Texas drawl and a name tag that read Cynthia, worn so long the letters had started to fade. Raymond introduced himself, pulled out a manila folder with deed papers, survey maps and photos he'd taken over the last few days, including clear shots of the fence cutting across the road. Cynthia glanced at them, raised an eyebrow, and led him back to a cubicle with a dusty computer and a land use map on the wall that still had push pins in it from the 90s. 10 minutes later, a man named Marcus Bell walked in. He wasn't flashy, khaki chambray shirt sleeves rolled up, but his eyes were sharp and his handshake firm. "You said they blocked your access road?" "They did, without notice, and it's the only way in." Marcus flipped through the paperwork Raymond handed him. "Yeah, I know this tract. That's the old Thompson easement, was never annexed into the HOA's jurisdiction. They might have assumed they assumed wrong," Raymond said. Marcus smiled. "Then let's show them." They filed the complaint, pulled zoning records, cross-checked easement registrations. Marcus knew the code inside and out and spoke with the cool assurance of a man who'd gone toe-to-toe with HOAs before. But Raymond didn't stop there. He asked a quiet question as they wrapped up. "What if I want to make sure they can't ever pull something like this again?" Marcus leaned back. "You want to privatize it?" Raymond nodded. "Turn the stretch they tried to fence into something I control." Marcus scratched his chin. "It's doable. A bit of red tape. Zoning permits reclassification, signage compliance. But if you're serious, I'm not here to play games." Within 3 weeks, they had the paperwork filed. Raymond paid for everything out of pocket. Retirement money that had been earmarked for a greenhouse or maybe a secondhand ATV now went to applications, filing fees, and professional surveys. It didn't matter, because this wasn't about convenience anymore. This was about control and the quiet dignity of saying no without raising your voice. The county approved it. The road was officially reclassified as a privately managed agricultural access lane, which meant Raymond had full authority to monitor, maintain, and even restrict usage across that stretch of land. So he did what anyone else in his position might not think to do. He built a gate, not some flimsy cattle fence. No, this was a custom-welded, solar-powered, license plate reading, keypad-secured gate. Industrial-grade steel, twin support posts anchored in concrete, backup battery, HD camera system, infrared motion sensors. It took a week to install, and Raymond supervised every bolt, every weld, every inch of trench for the electrical conduits. On the day it went live, he stood at the base of it, Samson sitting beside him, tongue out and programmed in the first few license plates, his, Danielle's, emergency services. And that was it. Everyone else, $5 toll, charged automatically through a third-party portal. Plate scan, charge processed. Try to sneak through, system flagged you. Try to tailgate another car, gate closed mid-roll. It was smart, and it was legal. At first, the neighborhood thought it was a joke. Elaine Croft didn't laugh. She called Raymond personally. The voicemail was sharp-clipped and every word hissed through clenched teeth. "This is completely inappropriate. You're creating a traffic hazard and obstructing a vital access corridor." Raymond calmly returned her call. "No, ma'am. I'm protecting my land. And this road, it's mine now." He didn't argue, just clicked off. Then came the fallout. Deliveries to Pine Hollow started arriving late. Uber drivers got confused. Babysitters and cleaners began texting their clients. Gate blocked again. Is there a code? Facebook lit up like Christmas? One post read, "Who does this guy think he is?" Another, "Can someone explain why I'm paying to get to my own neighborhood?" Raymond didn't respond to any of it. He didn't need to. The gate did the talking. The $5 toll wasn't about money. He wasn't profiting. Every dollar went back into maintenance, tech upgrades, and a side account he used to install better lighting and a second camera rig after someone spray painted the toll box one night. But the pressure kept building. Someone ran over his mailbox. Samson got violently ill after sniffing a piece of hot dog someone had tossed just inside the fence line. The vet suspected baited meat. Danielle started locking the doors earlier. Raymond added another camera. Still, he never confronted anyone. Instead, he documented, filed police reports, logged vehicle IDs, took notes, dated photos. One night, a car idled by the gate for 7 minutes. Raymond didn't move, just sat in the dark, hand resting near the phone, watching the monitor. Nothing happened, but the message was clear: someone wanted to intimidate him. They picked the wrong man, because Raymond Carter wasn't some outsider. He wasn't new money or reckless rebellion. He was a man who'd worked the kind of job no one thanked you for 40 years under the sun, fixing roads people cursed without realizing someone like him had laid the gravel. And now he'd drawn a new line. Not with words, not with threats, but with steel. They wanted to box him in fine. He'd make them pay for it. At first, the gate was treated like a prank. People rolled up to it, expecting it to swing open out of politeness or old habit. But it didn't. It just sat there, tall, dark, unmoving, until the scanner read a plate, processed a payment, or denied access altogether. One woman tried tailgating a delivery van and ended up wedged between the bars when the gate closed halfway. Raymond didn't say a word, just sent her the footage and a polite invoice. She paid it, quietly. But the reactions were getting louder. Pine Hollow's community board lit up like dry timber in July. Someone called it extortion. Another demanded the city step in. A few residents made noise about vigilante behavior and unlawful toll collection. But it was all wind. The road was legally Raymond's, and Marcus Bell had the zoning documents to prove it. Still, that didn't stop the petty harassment. A bag of trash dumped at his gate. A tire iron jammed into the keypad overnight. Another anonymous letter, this time printed in bold block letters. "You don't belong here." Raymond didn't flinch. He added tamper alerts to the system and reinforced the keypad with a weatherproof steel box. He also added an extra solar panel and upgraded the battery backup. All of it paid for through toll revenue. By the third week, he'd collected nearly $1,800. Not much in the grand scheme of things. But it wasn't about the money. It was about visibility, about forcing people to confront what they tried to ignore: his existence. That's when the shift began. The first sign came in the form of a knock. Late afternoon, hot sun hanging low. Raymond opened the gate remotely from his phone after spotting the figure on the camera. A man in his 30s stood just outside holding a paper plate wrapped in foil. Mr. Carter," he said awkwardly, adjusting his sunglasses. "I'm Luis Mercado. I live on Oakshade Drive. Just wanted to say something." Raymond raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead." Luis cleared his throat. "I'm a history teacher. Been here 5 years. I didn't agree with the fence. And I don't think you're wrong for what you did. Some of us, we just didn't know what was really going on." He handed the plate through the gate. "Tamales. Still warm. My wife made too many. And, well, she said we ought to be neighborly." Raymond took the plate, said nothing, just gave a quiet nod. Word must have spread. The next week, a teenager left a note taped to the gate. "Can I help with the chickens on weekends?" Her name was Lila, and she brought her own gloves and asked thoughtful questions about irrigation. Raymond didn't smile often, but she got one. Then came the media. A local news van pulled up one morning while Raymond was checking the motion sensor logs. A skinny reporter in khakis stepped out, mic in hand, with a camera guy trailing behind. "Mr. Carter, Ken, we ask you a few questions about the gate." Raymond didn't like attention, but he liked lies less. "You get the facts straight?" he asked. The reporter nodded. We've seen the permits. Raymond gave them 29 words on camera. I didn't put up this gate to make friends. I put it up because they put up a fence. All I'm doing is giving them the same delay they gave me. The clip went viral locally. Comments poured in. Some called him a genius. Others said he should sue. A few made jokes king of the toll booth, but most respected the clarity of it. He hadn't lashed out. He'd simply mirrored the insult back at its sender. Elaine Croft, meanwhile, was unraveling. She called Marcus Bell twice threatening legal action. She mailed Raymond a cease and desist letter written on HOA letterhead in perfect serif font. Marcus responded with a polite, blistering letter that ended with, "Respectfully, your client has no jurisdiction here. Please be advised further harassment will be documented and forwarded to the county." Elaine went quiet for a bit, but the resentment festered. More Facebook drama. One post read, "My gardener's charging me extra because of the toll road. This is outrageous." Another, "I timed it 12 extra minutes because of one man's ego." Raymond didn't respond, but he did tweak the system. He dropped the toll to $3 for registered plates and raised it to $15 for unregistered vehicles with more than 2 crossings per day. Contractors, nannies, food delivery drivers. People who had once treated his land as a shortcut were now demanding reimbursement from the HOA. The cracks widened. A quiet whisper became a public conversation. One neighbor, Trina Baxley, a retired nurse with a bad hip, spoke at a Pine Hollow HOA meeting. "We talk a lot about community, but has anyone actually gone and asked that man what happened?" She was met with silence. Then Luis Mercado stood and read a letter he'd helped his students write. "We learned that standing up for yourself doesn't mean shouting. Sometimes it means building something strong enough to make people stop." The meeting ended in awkward muttering. Raymond didn't attend. He just heard about it from the same neighbor who slipped him a mason jar of local honey with a note for your tea. "Thank you for standing your ground." But he knew something had changed. Not officially. The HOA still held meetings, still printed newsletters, still refused to remove the original fence that had started everything. But fewer people were using that fence. More cars stopped at the gate and paid the toll. Some drivers even waved, and every time someone paid, Raymond funneled the funds into new soil for his vegetable beds, into a coop expansion for his chickens, into a battery-powered backup system for the well pump. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He was just trying to breathe. And slowly, quietly, the neighborhood was learning that sometimes the cost of convenience isn't measured in minutes. It's measured in dignity. It was the last week of May when everything truly started to crack. The HOA board, once smug and united, now fumbled their way through meetings that devolved into side glances and silence. Members who once parroted Elaine Croft's rhetoric began to privately message each other with doubts, questions, and eventually regrets. One message leaked to the public. A thread of emails between Elaine and another board member revealed that she had ordered the original fence installation without a full board vote. Worse, she had paid the contractor using HOA emergency maintenance funds, labeling it under common area landscape repair. The backlash was immediate. 3 board members resigned in the same week, citing ethical concerns and hostile pressure. One wrote a resignation letter that ended with, "This isn't what I signed up for. He's not the threat. We are." Someone spray-painted Rita's mess, a reference to Elaine's full name, Rita Elaine Croft, on the side of the HOA clubhouse. It was scrubbed off quickly, but not before it made the rounds on every local Facebook group. Raymond didn't celebrate. He didn't need to, because people were already coming to him, slowly, one by one, not to apologize always, but to acknowledge. There was the young mother with the double stroller who asked if he could register her plate. "I've got 2 kids under 3, she said. "I don't want to fight. I just want to get home without circling the whole neighborhood." He waved her through. Then came Desmond Tyler, a soft-spoken accountant in his 40s, with a baby carrier in one arm and a car seat in the other. "Sir," he said, "my wife commutes to Waco every morning. She's exhausted. You think you could let us through?" Raymond looked him up and down, nodded. "Send me your plate number. No charge." Desmond blinked. "Really, I'm not punishing people," Raymond said. "I'm protecting my land." Word spread again, and this time it wasn't gossip. It was relief. Drivers started pausing at the gate just to say thank you. A boy on a bike taped a hand-painted sign to a post near the toll box that read, "Mr. Carter's Road. Please be kind." Raymond left it up, but the biggest shift came during the unofficial town hall meeting Elaine herself had organized at the Pine Hollow Community Center. She printed glossy flyers and stapled them to neighborhood bulletin boards, the headline "Community Safety in Crisis." Raymond didn't attend. He didn't have to, because half the neighborhood did, and they came with something more powerful than volume lived experience. Desmond Tyler stood first. He spoke calmly, baby still in his arms. "My wife lost 2 hours a week going around that road because of a decision no one asked her about." Then Luis Mercado got up. "My students, your children, have watched this unfold, and they've asked me, why are grown-ups mad at the man who put up a gate when they put up a fence first?" You could hear a pin drop. Then slowly, with the help of her cane, Trina Baxley stood. She looked out at the crowd, then at Elaine. "You all talk about property value and community vision, like they're more important than human decency. But not once did anyone ask why that man felt he had to build a gate. Maybe if we'd minded our own business instead of his, none of this would have happened." She sat down, and in that moment the entire room shifted. Someone filmed the whole thing on their phone. Within a day it was online, then picked up by a regional blog, then replayed on a local radio station. "Gatekeeper" or "groundbreaker," the headline read. Raymond still didn't respond publicly. He didn't post, he didn't tweet, he didn't grant interviews. But when the clip aired on the evening news, Danielle paused it right after Trina's speech, turned to Raymond and said softly, "They're finally hearing you." He didn't reply, just stared at the paused image of a room full of people finally seeing the thing he'd been forced to live. But peace is never free. A few days later, Raymond noticed something odd in the gate logs. A white sedan with a vanity plate had approached the gate twice within 2 hours. Both times it stopped. Never entered, never paid. But the second time it idled for nearly 9 minutes. That wasn't hesitation. That was a warning. He forwarded the footage to Marcus, who forwarded it to the sheriff's office. No response. 3 days later, Sampson got sick again. This time it was worse. The vet confirmed traces of liver toxins, same as before, probably hidden in food tossed over the fence. Danielle broke down crying. Raymond didn't. He got quieter. He upgraded the camera system to a private off-grid server Marcus helped him set up. He added solar-powered floodlights, reinforced the gate frame, started keeping a loaded shotgun next to the back door, not out of fear, but to remind himself that he still had control. Then one morning, a county sheriff deputy named Langford pulled up in a white pickup with government tags. He got out, shades on clipboard in hand. "Got a complaint," he said. "Someone says you're extorting folks with this toll." Raymond just handed him the paperwork. Langford looked it over, whistled low. "Well," he said, "looks legal to me." He turned to leave, but paused. "Off the record," he said with a smirk, "if I had neighbors like yours, I'd charge double." They chatted for 10 minutes. When Langford left, he had a dozen eggs in his passenger seat and a story to tell at the station. Because the more the HOA tried to isolate Raymond, the more connected he became. Locals started calling him the gatekeeper, but not with mockery, with admiration. A biker group mailed him a leather patch that read, "Hold the line." A state senator's aide quietly and unofficially called Marcus and said, "We're not getting involved, but we're not going to stop him either." Elaine Croft, meanwhile, was sinking. She held emergency board sessions no one attended, sent out glossy flyers that were thrown in trash bins, printed a newsletter with an aerial photo of Raymond's property and red arrows pointing at the gate with a caption that read, "A threat to our peace." Raymond framed it, hung it in his tool shed, because when someone calls your boundary a threat, it usually means it worked. The heat rolled in slowly that summer, but the tension inside Pine Hollow cracked like sun-baked asphalt. The HOA was still technically intact, but in practice it had become a ghost town of policies no one followed and authority no one respected. The fence that once stood like a symbol of control was now just an eyesore bending slightly in the middle vines, starting to creep along the base. Elaine Croft still wore her title like armor, but she walked with a nervous edge now. More than once she was seen driving past Raymond's gate, not through it, just watching. Then came the letter, folded crisp, sealed with a gold-embossed HOA emblem. and placed in Raymond's mailbox with no return address. It read, "We are formally requesting a mutual resolution, a proposal to remove the fence on our end in exchange for the deactivation of the toll system. Let's end this with civility and understanding. No apology, no ownership, just fatigue masquerading as olive branch." Raymond read it 3 times, then set it aside. That evening he walked the perimeter of his land boots, sinking slightly in the warm dirt. Samson trotted behind him, still slower since the incident, but strong. The gate stood tall in the distance, unmoved, steady. Danielle joined him with 2 mason jars of sweet tea. She handed one over and said, "So, they're waving a flag, not white," Raymond said. "More like beige," she laughed. "You thinking of backing down?" He took a slow sip, then shook his head. "I didn't build that gate out of spite. I built it because they thought they could fence me off and smile while doing it." He stared through the silver links of their original fence. No cars passed, no voices echoed, just stillness. But something had changed in Raymond. He no longer felt anger when he looked at that fence, just a kind of tired disappointment. The next morning he called Marcus Bell. "I don't want to punish anybody," he said. "I just want the space to live how I planned. Grow things, teach some kids, not wake up every day wondering who's going to poison my dog or dump trash on my land." Marcus was quiet a moment, then said, "Well, you've got leverage. You can hold out or you can name your terms." Raymond nodded. "I'll name them, but I won't write them down." 2 days later, he hand-painted a sign and posted it by the toll gate. It read, "Community Talk, this Saturday at 5 p.m. All welcome. No RSVP, no microphones, no agenda." Saturday came. The heat lingered, but the air felt different. Raymond set up a folding table, a plastic tub of paper cups, and 2 box fans running off a solar battery. Danielle brought out pitchers of sweet tea. A local teen from the high school ag club came early to help set up chairs. Raymond wore the same shirt he'd worn when the gate was first installed. Samson lay under the table, head on his paws, tail gently thumping. By 5:10 p.m., more than 40 people had arrived, some in lawn chairs, some leaning on truck beds, some standing with arms crossed, still skeptical. A few familiar faces, Louise, Trina, Desmond. And in the back, standing alone in a pressed white blouse and oversized sunglasses, Elaine Croft. Raymond stood in front of them, no notes, no speech. Just quiet authority built from months of holding the line. "I don't have a microphone," he said, "so if I talk too soft, y'all let me know." People chuckled lightly. The ice cracked. "I didn't put up this gate to make enemies. I put it up because my only road got blocked and no one would answer the door when I knocked. I didn't start with a toll. I started with a question. Got ignored. So I did what I had to. Not to punish anyone, but to keep moving forward." He paused, looked at the crowd, then at the road behind them. "Some of y'all don't know what it's like to feel boxed in without being touched. Fences don't always need locks. They can smile while shutting you out." A murmur passed through the group. A voice from the back asked, "So what do you want now?" Raymond didn't miss a beat. "Respect. Not apologies. Not flowers. Just respect for the boundary I had to fight for." And he hesitated, then continued, "I want to take the toll gate down." Gasps. Shock. Danielle even glanced at him sideways. "I'm not doing it to surrender," he said. "I'm doing it because the lesson's been taught. Y'all saw what happens when you push a man too far. Now maybe next time you'll think twice before boxing in the wrong person." He looked straight at Elaine. "I won't forget what was done, but I also won't let it rot me from the inside." There was a long silence. Then Trina stepped forward and placed another jar of honey on the table. "For your tea," she said gently. Desmond shook his hand. "Thanks for not giving up on us, even when we deserved it." Even Elaine gave a small nod before walking away, heels clicking on gravel. Within a week, the gate came down, slowly, piece by piece. Raymond dismantled it himself with help from 2 local teens he'd hired for the summer. He left the camera system in place not as a threat, but as quiet accountability. The fence on the HOA side. One morning it was just gone. No ceremony, no statement. In its place stood a small wooden post with a reflective marker. The road flowed again. The story faded from the headlines, but it stayed in the memory. People remembered the gate not just because it stood, but because it made them stop. Think, choose. Raymond returned to his peace, built a greenhouse with the same money the toll once brought in, taught Lila, the teen helper, how to plant heirloom tomatoes, even started a compost system with Danielle's help, and opened up the land on Saturdays to local kids who wanted to learn how to swing a hammer or work a shovel. He didn't become a hero by fighting. He became one by standing still. Some stories end with fireworks or speeches. Others end like this, on a quiet patch of land with chickens clucking in the distance and the sun dipping low behind mesquite trees. Raymond Carter didn't change the world. He didn't need to. He changed his corner of it. And sometimes that's more powerful than anything else. Because what Raymond taught that neighborhood, and maybe taught all of us, is that dignity doesn't come from shouting. It comes from knowing where your line is drawn and standing there, not to hurt others, but to remind them you exist and that your peace isn't a favor they get to grant, it's a right you claim. If you've ever been pushed aside, ignored, or dismissed, maybe Raymond's story speaks to you. Maybe it's a reminder that when someone blocks your road, you don't always need a bulldozer. Sometimes all you need is a plan, a little patience, and the willingness to make people pay attention. And if you're lucky, if you're wise, you'll reach a point where you no longer need the gate, because the lesson has already made its way through. Raymond didn't forgive everyone. He didn't forget, but he did choose peace over punishment, because he knew that what lasts longer than fences, laws, or neighborhood gossip is the kind of stillness that doesn't ask for permission. So tonight, if you're sitting somewhere quiet, wondering if your stand matters, remember this: it does. Even if no one claps, even if no one thanks you, it matters.